Hi, welcome to Art of Academia, a weekly podcast featuring interviews with leading scientists and insider takes on life in academia, hosted by Komal and Madan, researchers from Cancer Science Institute, Singapore.
Oh, what's up?
What's up? You start, I feel like you have
Oh,
a lot of
I
things.
started at such a high.
In the morning.
Yeah.
It's already...
Not even morning, I think like till 3 p.m. or so I was so high.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like,
What happened at 3 p.m.?
Experiments,
Oh,
man.
shit. That's enough.
I don't know. I'm like quite sure there's some like kicking in bipolar disorder right
stuff.
now. Yeah, because it does happen. Like overall, of course, I'm like at a normal state and
Yeah.
then mostly like a bit positive only.
Yeah.
And then sometimes these dips come which are sort of I can't explain
Random.
them. Yeah, can't explain them. And then like some highs also come, which obviously I'm not complaining about.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
But a few things did happen. So one was, of course, I started my art Insta page, which is thanks to you.
That's not thanks to me.
I mean, you pushed me so much.
Yeah, I don't know why you're procrastinating on it for so long.
I don't know either.
Maybe
I sort of do know. I think it's just that it's not so clear in my head. But I don't know. Somehow I felt like putting it out there
Yeah.
sort of takes its innocence away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I felt like, oh, this is my thing. I'm doing it. Like I'm having fun. But now it is now part of this, huge internet, and like there's so
Yeah.
many things there and so many people there.
Right.
I don't know if it will be, appreciated, respected, and things. I don't know what's that.
No, that's fair. I
Yeah.
think that's true. That probably every person who makes something has to go through that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is a part of it where when I do think sometimes it is too early. Like whenever-
That was I had that for in the beginning. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't think if I'm ready. If I don't know. But I think I got past that.
100%.
I got that
knowing
past.
you, I would say you are way past that.
Yeah, initially I had that, but I think lately doing it more and like doing that art exhibition at the National Gallery and things like that have definitely boosted my confidence in like I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it. I'm not there for like that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of like people seeing it. It was just about it getting dirty. I don't know why
Getting dirty.
I had this feeling.
Okay.
But now I don't have it.
Okay,
now
that's
I'm
good.
really excited. Like I've been posting.
As
And
of-
one mistake I made was I posted everything together in the beginning,
Oh, you
and then
should have, like, done one by
saved
one.
things.
True.
But I don't know, I just got excited, I guess, and I was like, oh, I have everything, and
Yeah.
put it together. And I made them like collected posts.
Uh-huh.
So most of my friends were just like, oh, you need to spread them out. I was like, I'm a noob, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much of an Instagram user either.
Yeah.
So every time when I come to it, I actually don't know what. I mean, I used to use it before, and I was fairly sure of what happens. But lately, I do feel lost. And the problem is, I think it's not really meant for linking and showcasing your stuff. I feel like it doesn't have the necessary features. It's primarily share one post at a time kind
Yeah.
of a feature,
Yeah.
where it's meant to oh, okay, this came up in my feed, I looked at it, and that's it. So the thing is, I've been using Twitter for a while.
Yeah.
And Twitter is actually pretty good for things like this. So
Yeah,
you can retweet.
I know you can retweet, you can
So that comes
repost,
up
yeah.
on your timeline, right? And also, it's easy to link stuff together. So I don't really post much on Twitter, but I see people do this a lot, where if they were exploring some idea, right? So they would have an original tweet, which is maybe, let's say, the start of that idea, and then they find something later that's related.
Got it.
They will reply to their own tweet with that thing that they saw on Twitter,
Got it.
and then eventually that becomes a long thread
Yeah.
that you can go through.
But I mean, sort of the purposes are different also, right? I guess. They can use this feature, Instagram can use this feature, but it's not as useful to them. Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Anyways.
Yeah, long segue. Let's move on.
Yeah, but that has been super fun. What else has happened? Oh, actually, a lot has happened this week. I think there's some reason to my high. It's not very, very random.
Yeah.
I did that interview with the PI. Guy seems nice. People say good things about him. And now he has invited me. And it's going to be a sort of an interview
Yeah.
that I'm excited about. So we're going to prepare for that. I have to present for 20 minutes and then there's 30 minutes Q&A. Seems more rigorous than my PhD defense,
Damn.
which was on Zoom on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Gonna be prepare for that, but excited.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, what's up? Okay, I guess two things. One I'm very interested in. Second, actually both are very interesting. Let's see. We can figure out which one to keep. The first one is, how with Jason we have to do sprint planning. So Jason, again, I'm just giving context for people who don't know. He's one of my mentors, and he's on the computation side of things. So he likes to run the lab a bit more like a software company. And one of the elements that he does is like we have these sprint planning meetings. And the agenda is basically you have this every 2 weeks, and you sit down and then you plan what you're going to do for the next 2 weeks, like down to the detail. And then like it's a group thing. Everybody in the lab does this, and I guess the point is that you help align where you're going immediately, the immediate next steps for like 2 weeks. He's very diligent that everybody does it, and everybody does it, but everybody does it in a very like half-hearted way. It's just like a thing we have to do.
Yeah.
I think Andy is probably the only one who does it very, very properly.
Not surprised.
Not surprised at all.
Like given the rest of it is you and Hannah.
Yeah, but I think even when we had other people in the lab, it was still like this.
Sure.
But anyway, so we have this sprint, right? So I go in every time. And then I will list like 5-6 things I want to do for the next 6 weeks. Sorry,
next
2
6
weeks.
weeks.
2 weeks. And then the problem is I don't look at it. I forget about it after the meeting because I guess I roughly know what I'm like planning to do. But and the way I work also is I don't really plan ahead so much. It's like I sort of know what things I'm currently interested in, and I go back and forth, and wherever there is like I see scope or I'm interested in, I just make progress. And that's how I operated for the longest time. But for some reason, I decided last week to take it seriously, to take the sprint seriously.
Okay.
So I basically gave it some thought, did not randomly choose things, thought about what could be finished ideally within this 2-week window. And like even thought about how to do it a little bit, and then define my tasks. Like, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I made it specific so that it can be completed in those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Not rough things like explore this thing and you don't know how long it takes.
Yeah.
And turns out it's actually working. Like it keeps me quite motivated now. So every day I start by like going to that list. It's still flexible in that I don't plan it to the level of the day. It's not like today do this.
Yeah.
But there are those 6 things which are fairly big things. They might take like 2-3 days to finish. And then I just look at it and then I start working. And once it's done, you go check it off. And it gives you like a nice kick off whatever molecule you get.
Dopamine,
with
serotonin. Yeah.
One of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm surprised by how well it's been working. It's only been
I'm actually not surprised. I think it would work. It's just that I have never done this either.
Yeah.
But just the fact that now you thought of these things and it's out there. Like there's other people who are also involved and they also know, and then really following it through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that it works. I'm surprised that it's working for me.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I have laid out a plan and I'm actually following it, and it's making me feel good. I'm like, what the hell?
You're gonna change, bro.
Yeah, what's
You're
happening?
gonna be a changed person soon.
I'm fucking confused. I don't know what's happening. But let's see how long it goes.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
We'll find out in next podcast episode.
Yeah, we shall update. Okay, so that's update number 1, right? Trying sprint. The second update, which is immediately opposite of what I just said. So over the weekend, I decided we will rebuild the website for the podcast. So far it has been just hosted on my personal website, but just somehow randomly over the weekend I thought, okay, today it will be a good day to build a new website. And obviously, so I already learned a little bit of how to do that when I did that the previous time, but obviously I wasn't just going to do that, right? I had to learn a whole new framework and then reinvent the wheel, basically, write everything from scratch. But I did do that. It took about a day and a half maybe, but it's done. The website is live.
It's so cool.
We can check it out. But I guess the main thing I wanted to say is I really like doing this. It's so fun, like just building websites.
Yeah.
I think what the thing I like about it is obviously the immediate feedback, right? You make some change and then you can see it live very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think it's different from research or other things that I tend to feel are sometimes addictive. Like sometimes learning can also feel addictive. But like this is still different because I guess you have so much flexibility. So with research, let's say you have a question you are pursuing, sometimes you get stuck, right? And then there's like no way around it. And then there is like if you're stuck, you're just stuck. It's a very difficult problem to cross. But with web development, there is like you can always make progress. Like okay, you had this idea. Or you thought you would solve this problem in this way, it's not working, but there's like 10 other ways to do it. You can implement that feature very quickly.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's it. Like I haven't really thought about it, but it just as a overall, whatever it is, it just feels so addictive. Like I was up till like 3 a.m. doing this instead of like sleeping.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't sleep. I'm telling myself, okay, go sleep. We'll wake up and do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
But no, I physically could not sleep. I could not stop. Which was like, yeah, a good experience. Yeah, you don't stay stuck for so long because there is so much documentation out there.
Yeah.
Like somebody has run into this problem.
Yeah.
99% likely that someone else has already run into this problem and they have their solution out. So you just have to like look for it and then you immediately find the answer. So I guess that's
That
part of
makes
it.
sense.
Right? With research, even if somebody
I think
has
with research you're actually trying to, solve really
New
novel
problems.
problems.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
here it's like, okay, developing a website, a lot of people have done. You are doing it in your own way, but you have bits and pieces coming from like everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Which would help you out.
Yeah, so I guess it's more about building than like trying to figure something
Yeah.
out. Like it doesn't have to be original. Right?
Exactly. And then originally you have no idea where you're going, and you can't see where you want it to go. And with website you sort of have an idea and then you're trying to build it piece by piece.
Yeah, yeah, you're just trying to make it functional,
Mm.
which is a very different problem, I suppose.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but I am thinking it now. Like I won't say like seriously considering, but I'm giving it some thought of like just trying to do this more often in whatever capacity that is. Like
maybe discuss with Jason if you can, because some of his lab members do similar things, right?
yeah, they do actually. I mean, his favorite project is Melvin, and Melvin is like a web app, if you will.
But I don't know how much fun it would be if it becomes,
Yeah.
comes into
Yeah.
these boundaries of
Exactly.
BI and like research and project and this
Yeah, so
stuff.
for now it's gonna stay a side project.
Yeah.
And like definitely there's a lot more functionality I want to add to the website we have already. So that will keep me occupied for a few hours at least going
Cool.
forward. Okay. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about this book, which is called Letters to a Young Scientist by Edward O. Wilson. So this guy, he's dead now. He died in 2021.
Why are you laughing?
I don't know, your face is funny. But
What did he do?
what did he do? Yeah, he's a very established scientist in Harvard. Like he's very successful. I think I didn't really look up his entire bio, but so established that he has been advising like very big other scientists.
Yeah.
Has in fact was started off entire fields of research.
Okay.
Like
What does he
he's
work
really-
on? What did he use to work on?
Yeah, so I think we can talk about how he started. So this is in the book, right? I'll come back to that.
Sure.
The book I think is meant to be half memoir and half advice to I guess other people who are looking to be scientists. And I'll tell you why I wanted to read it. So he had a YouTube video, which is basically titled "Advice to Young Scientists" or something like that. And I quite liked it. Like there was a good. It was a short talk, obviously. So he touched upon a lot of things, didn't go into a lot of detail, but it really resonated with me. So I wanted to read the book. Then when I read the book, there's a lot of other stuff, which was fun, but not everybody might care for it. So it really depends on the person. I just want to put that caveat out there. So
What things?
Okay, so my issues with it, let's say, just starting off with
Yeah,
the
I know
cons.
what I mean.
So he's like fairly old, right? So a lot of his advice also, it feels old-fashioned in some way.
I see.
I think they all have like truth in it, but it's not the way I would think of it, because it kind of makes it like no, like kind of icky. Like it's not the coolest
not
way.
super applicable like in current times.
It's probably still applicable. I think it's more that it's not relatable. Like that world, I think most of our world views have shifted, so that you won't feel very inspired when you listen to it. At least I didn't feel very inspired naturally.
It could be quite subjective, of course.
Yeah. And I like all these like pretentious phrasing of things, so obviously he doesn't do any of that. So I'm like, bro, come on, you can say that in a better way.
Ramp it up.
Yeah, really. Okay, so your question was, what did he work on? So he, I think, was mainly an ant researcher. See,
This again.
don't laugh. So he's working on ants, okay? And I guess he researched it extensively, right?
Mhm.
Like over the years. So the book starts off by him telling how he got started. So as a kid, he just used to be someone who's obsessed with insects. Like I guess he was outdoors a lot, like kids back then, no computers. And his fascination was insects. He's just randomly bringing bugs into the house, putting them on display, tearing them apart, I guess.
So weirdo, man.
Yeah, I don't know what kids used to do back then, but he was clearly into them. And then, he has a few stories of how he went from one thing to another, but basically his love for insects took him into like a research program in some big college. And then that was his start. Like he chose ants, and we'll come back to that. Okay, so the way he talks about it is, he says passion first, then training, right? Which is just to say that choose your topic based on what you are like naturally interested in, and then like I guess that has to come first before you like decide. Okay, I'm gonna like work on this thing for a long time. Which is
I think this dilemma we have discussed in the previous episode.
exactly.
Like what?
We have. I think others have also like
Touched on it.
attempted to it.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't think he discussed something that changed my opinion of it.
Mhm.
So I don't want to delve too much into it. But if you had anything,
Yeah, I mean,
any
I
reaction?
don't know if I really believe in passion.
Yeah, exactly. That was my same reaction to it also.
Right. Yeah.
Because you know what, you can always tell yourself a story of how you were passionate about something, looking back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so when you've done something a lot, and then when you look back on it, it's very easy to say, oh yeah, I was passionate, that's how I ended up doing
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I understand you enjoyed it and you kept on doing it. For example, art for me right now.
Mm.
I would say I'm passionate about it, but it's just that I've been doing it for so long and I enjoy it so much.
Yeah,
I did not decide,
exactly, right?
when I was like 10 years old or something, I
Yeah.
really love this, I'm gonna be an artist or something.
Yeah,
I did not do that, it just happened.
yeah. So and I think especially when it comes to choosing a PhD topic,
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe back then you could legitimately be passionate about ants and then say I'll do a PhD on ants, and that was a viable thing to do.
Yeah.
But nowadays PhD topics are like so niche, right? What are the
exactly.
odds
You
that
don't even
you're-
know anything about like what this lab does, and then
Mm.
really picking something there, it's impossible to do while you're sitting home.
Exactly.
You can be as broad as just like cancer research, and
Yeah.
then there's
Yeah.
just so much to it.
True. So I also agree. Like this one, I feel is a bit iffy, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's also a bit counterproductive of telling someone to like,
Just follow your passion.
yeah, follow your passion. It's kind of like harmful advice, because what if they don't know what their passion is?
Yeah. I mean, right now also we are exploring and then picking our battles and then sort of following through.
True.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
it doesn't even have this passion doesn't even have to be about the topic, right? It could just be research is my passion. So,
True.
Which is legit.
True. Yeah, I think or you could just be someone who's very ambitious / driven also, and I guess that can translate into passion.
You apply it in any field.
Yeah, like if you just know that okay, I want to achieve something big, or I want to be a great scientist,
Yeah.
then maybe that translates into passion for whatever you're doing, even if you don't care for that specific topic or didn't care in the beginning. Okay, we can leave it there. Okay, the second one is nice. So the second, by the way, these won't be his exact words. I'm like paraphrasing a lot.
Sure.
So the second one is called March Away from the Sound of Guns. So this is basically, so in the army, there's a saying of like when you're gathering troops, you say march towards the sound of guns. Like you're saying, okay, let's go. That's where we are going.
Oh, I would still march away from the sound of
You're not a soldier. So,
yeah.
but his thing is in science, you should march away from the sound of the guns, right? It's basically that if there's a lot of hype, a lot of attention coming towards some field,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah.
Like obviously you need to know about it. You can like learn a lot from it, but don't pick that as your research topic. Your domain should be something that is rather niche and like probably something that nobody cares about. And then you like cultivate your experience, right? That's his like broad point.
Yeah.
I can dive into a little bit of detail, but I guess I'll get your reaction first.
Right. I mean, personally, again, I have been working on BRCA2, which is so damn popular. It has been discovered like 2 decades ago. Everybody knows what it does. It has been like, researched to the, last amino acid or whatever. So I agree to this. Like even the next positions or like future projects I would want to do would be somewhere where there's more niche, lesser people working on it, and then there's just more chance of discovery. There's just more things that you could look at that people have not done before. So I do agree with this advice.
Yeah, and the thing is, I guess everybody, like when you talk to some scientists, they will react in a way that yes, that's obvious. But I think we don't take it into, like we don't keep that in mind when we like make day-to-day decisions, right? Whenever I'm like thinking of exploring some new angle or something, I don't really think about how how frequently has this been like asked already, or how many people might be working on this.
I think these sort of questions come with time. Yeah, because like only then, with like maybe a few more years, you know the literature more around whatever you're working on, and then you know where's the hype or like how many people have been working on this. For example, when I am discussing my work with some other people like Nambi or like some other postdocs in the lab, I will just be like, oh, I have these potential future directions like A, B, C, D, and then their thinking is a bit different. For example, I was discussing this with Nambi, and I was talking about some non-coding RNAs, repetitive element expression, and then he's like, how many people are working on this? Can you find a collaborator who could help you out with this? So I was like, yeah, that's a fair point, which I never thought about.
Yeah, and this is true because for me, early on in my PhD, I was, I guess, very motivated if a lot of people were talking about something, right? Like that's kind of how I got into R loops as opposed to the other projects in the lab, because there were so many review papers on it, you know, there was a lot of hype, and I'm like, oh, that's great, you know, like people care about this, this is important, let's do it. But I think this is slowly changing. Like
but again, like it is in some way important as well, because there's so much groundwork already done. Now it's easier for you to actually find something and actually, you know, for me especially, like impact and like, you know, getting something really matters.
Yeah.
So in that case, if I'm like really just dribbling and not being able to reach somewhere because there's lack of foundation, that is difficult for working in a niche field.
Yes, but I guess the niche field, maybe it just has more simpler problems to solve, right? Like that is the flip side of it.
It's just that people don't know about the importance of these things yet.
Yeah.
So even you wouldn't know the importance of those things at that point.
Yes, and this is something we is addressed in a later point. I'll come back to that. A lot of things to come back to already. Okay, so I guess I'll just read a few lines that he says, which is actually quite similar to what he said. That was quite cool. Okay, so look for a chance to break away, to find a subject you can make your own. That is where the quickest advances are likely to occur. You have the best chance to become a leader, and as time passes, to gain freedom to set your own course. Then, if a subject is getting a lot of attention, you know, if their practitioners are like prize winners, blah blah blah, stay away from that. Listen to the news.
You're targeted.
Listen to the news. Learn how and why the subject became prominent. But remember that it is crowded with talented people. You would be a newcomer. So instead, like what to do instead, he's saying, take a subject that interests you and looks promising, but where experts are not yet like competing with each other, and then there are like few, if any, prizes or academy memberships that have been given, right? Basically not very established. You may feel lonely and insecure in your first endeavors, but all things equal, this is your best chance to make your mark and experience the thrill of discovery.
That's quite cool.
Yeah.
Do you have more to read?
No.
Because what I was thinking is, it's only with time when you sort of start to think about these questions. When you're applying for a PhD, you don't have a huge amount of criteria. It is more about, okay, a good lab, good country, good university. Those are the things you're thinking about, or not so much about a research problem. Because at that time you're gonna do rotations and shit. It's only after I think you have finished the PhD and gotten that wisdom, you now get to choose and make decisions.
I do think that's true. Like probably before you start your PhD, you don't even know, like you said, what areas to pick and all that. So there maybe it's less important, but I guess given where we are now, it feels more important to like try to find the thing that you want to continue working on. And I actually glazed over this part, but there's a whole bit of where he's caveating this advice with, but obviously like good training is
God,
important.
I was just gonna say that. I was just about to say that because we have discussed this earlier as well, right? Right now, for my choosing, of course, I want it to be a field of interest, but I really want it to be good people and like good mentors where I enjoy what I'm doing. And then things will spin out. Whatever happens.
So I'm actually skipping a lot of the caveats, but he's obviously thought through that. Okay. Okay, so then I guess nice segue. This is not really a rule or principle as he likes to call them. I haven't used the word because I don't like it. that he offers, but he talks about it, which is like to cultivate expertise, right, in some subject that you then choose through these processes. Okay, so I think I can summarize this. So the cultivate expertise bit is pretty much like once you have your niche, right, like that you sort of picked up, he's basically saying become like an expert, like a world-renowned expert. And he says that especially with like niche stuff, we think this is way more challenging or like way more difficult. I guess difficult is not the right word, because he does acknowledge that it's difficult, but it just seems much more impossible to us than what he says it really is. So basically with like within his whole thing is, if you work hard enough and if you work for like I guess if you think about things in the right way, you can become a world-renowned expert in a very short time. So I guess normally in our head the timelines are very big.
Yeah.
We think you probably need like a whole entire career, 30-40 years to then be considered the expert. But he says like if the field is like sort of niche, if you've done the prerequisites of like choosing something that is sort of young, he doesn't give a timeline, but he says like it's very, very achievable because not many people are working on it.
Yeah. But again, like the luck factor also does come in here.
Luck is 100%.
There's just so many people trying to do different niche things, and only few of them will stem out into something substantial.
True.
Like those are the really young PIs who we see.
Yeah.
Who somehow got stumbled upon it, or really just found it, really worked hard towards.
Yeah, I guess the discovery part you can't control.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can try to solve some problem, but
if you're like sort of making a decision between this really busy field versus less busy field, the chances of succeeding will be higher on this side.
Yeah. So, yeah, actually that is true. And then on the matter of difficulty, right? This is like fairly, like not so mind blowing, but basically he says that when you're looking for scientific discoveries, like don't be discouraged by difficult problems. Like every problem is basically an opportunity. So the more difficult the problem, the greater the likely importance of its solution. Which is, I guess, okay, but debatable, right? Maybe sometimes problems are difficult, but then the answer maybe is not so important. I don't know if it's always true. But I guess on the matter of expertise, what I had to say was, he had this line which I thought was kind of cool, which is basically that the honeybee, he's talking about another researcher who works on bees, and then this is his line.
They are buddies.
They are buddies, obviously. So he says that the honeybee is like a magic well. The more you draw from it, the more there is to draw. Right? Because I guess traditionally we tend to see things as, okay, here's a problem, I've like worked on it, and I've like found all the things that I thought were interesting, and now I'm done with it. And I guess I want to move on to the next thing or whatever. But I guess with science, there's always this thing of you can go deeper.
Yeah, I mean that's what most people do, right? This is my protein of interest, and I will like do research the shit out of it.
Yeah, I guess you could choose a protein, but I guess it can also be something else, because I don't think I gave it so much conscious thought.
Or I mean, that is what makes you an expert.
I guess I never thought about it. So I mean, I knew it, but I guess I instinctively it doesn't make sense, right? Like you would think, oh, okay, you're like kind of done with this thing, you move on to the next thing. Seems like the natural approach to do.
But then how will that make you an expert in the field, right?
It doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
if you need to be an expert, you really have to just sit with it and get bored, and then
maybe
just
not get bored.
you can like constantly live with it.
Yeah. Okay, fair. Alright, so then the next one.
I can't see myself doing that though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know, and I think I have some instinctive thing against it as well, of like doing one. I guess it's a bit of a phrasing problem, because obviously they are not doing the same thing again and again, right? Obviously, there's going to be every new problem you ask requires like
absolutely.
Yeah, and actually, small tangent, but when you said about the protein thing, right? That's actually a good example, because let's say you have a protein in mind for whatever reason, and as a lab you work on it. But the different questions you ask are like requires very different experiments.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like if when you go to labs that do this, I guess even your lab might be like this. If you talk to like the different people, there's sometimes like barely any overlap.
Yeah, eventually it's just a protein, but you are asking very, very different questions.
Yeah.
Like one person is looking at, say, our loops. around BRCA2, and then the other person is looking at genomic instability around BRCA2. Very, very different techniques and very different types of questions that you're asking. But it binding with some other proteins, like binding partners.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
completely different aspects of ADAR1.
Yeah, but the flip side is like some labs are more method driven, right? They have like a method or like a technique that they're really good at, and then they apply that to different things.
Yeah, I mean, protein was just an example, but all I meant was just really fixating on one kind of thing, be it a technique, be it a
but then the technique
pathway or a type of cancer.
But the technique labs, they are a bit more homogeneous in that way. Like, of course, maybe the downstream experiments will change. So let's say, like for us, it's a mass spec lab. Everybody kind of does. They have like one big mass spec experiment that you start with, and even beyond that, because I guess sometimes it's a bit more aligned in terms of the topics as well. We end up having a lot of things in common experimentally. So a lot of people do the same things that allows you to have very standardized protocols, which is useful in some ways. It's just a interesting dichotomy, which is actually related to. He has a line in the book. So Dennis is like a mass spec expert, my PI. He has a line in a book where he says, "Use technology, but don't become too attached to it." I don't know how true or how useful that advice is, but he basically talks about, I guess, back in the day when centrifuges were invented. A lot of people were really blown away by the centrifuge technology, and they started researching it, right? So they would just build their career around centrifuges, and then he talks about how through some innovation it became like a very easy, affordable instrument. And then all these people basically. I
can't wrap my head around this. I mean, I can imagine it, but it's just ridiculous.
So this is a story of like how when it came out, it was thought to be like a technology that everyone would work on forever, but it very quickly became like very household technology. So then there's nothing to research.
Right. Like I mean, if you think about right now, it's things like single cell transcriptomics, genomics, really at a boom right now, but who knows what's going to happen in a few. Even like we are actually seeing it across our research
it keeps changing.
Like it's initially just whole genome sequencing was insane, and like things are coming to single cell, and then like epigenetics you can do. So I guess everything has its own phase.
True.
I don't know what's the next big thing.
Okay. The next one is, and I think this comes from personal experience for him a lot, because he really emphasizes and spends a lot of time on this. But he basically says, don't be afraid of math.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to include computers in this, because I think that makes it more relevant for today's thing, but all of this applies to both these subjects. But you can imagine...
Where does he come from?
I guess the fact that biologists usually tend to suck at math, and I guess a lot of us are afraid of it, right? Like we have some inhibition towards it, but he makes a claim which I think is fairly true, that it's essential. If it was essential back then, you can only imagine how essential it is now. But so again, both math and some computer skills. But he basically goes on to say that many very famous scientists started out with like zero or like next to zero mathematical skill, but then they like built it along the way. So I guess he's like trying to be reassuring, saying it's not actually that hard. And he himself, he says, is only like semi-literate in math, his own words, not me. And he says like, so the amount of math you need isn't that bad. Like anybody can learn it. And it's mostly like a mental block and not like an intellectual block. That's his main point.
Do you think so?
I don't think so. I think for math it's true, for stats it's very, very true, and even for computer skills, like especially computer skills, I would say the actual concepts are very easy. I think we definitely like overestimate the difficulty in our heads, but once you start, it's like, oh, that's all. It's like, yeah, that's all.
That's true.
And the thing is, it's super useful. And exactly because so many people are afraid, it gives you such an advantage. Right? So
that is so true. Yeah, because I'm also just thinking, I have only learned these things on my own in the past 2 to 3 years. I delved into it, I tried to learn it a little bit, and I can do it now, somewhat do it now.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The only difference is you tried, and they haven't tried, or like too scared to try.
Because I think that I don't have the aptitude, the thing that I'm just mentioning. Like I believe that there's a need for aptitude, but given that I did it.
Yeah.
Maybe there is not as much.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I mean, for sure, like maybe for like some top level concepts and like problem solving, you need some aptitude. You need to like it enough to sit with it. But I think like because let's say to be a functional bioinformatician, like what a typical modern day bioinformatician does, 90% of what they do can be accomplished with like existing tools and packages, right? You very rarely are you like writing your own code, which is I guess the more difficult part of that, requires more training. The rest is just familiarizing yourself with existing tools. And this is not like a new idea. If you go look at anybody who has gone through the process, that's kind of what they'll tell you. Like learn the command line, learn some basic R or Python, whatever that is, and you're good to go, bro. Just learn the tools, like learn what RNA-seq is, whatever.
Yeah. And again, like as Andy was also discussing during the interview with him, you really just start with problem solving.
Yeah.
You get the basics and then you get this problem and then now you try to figure out, oh, this is what I need to do, as opposed to like having dummy problems where you're like, now things have changed and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah, true. Yeah. Actually, that's true. I guess he called it tutorial hell, right? Which is quite funny. But yeah, I guess that is the part which might be a bit more difficult. But I guess that's also where you learn the most.
Yeah.
Leave the tutorials. Okay. I was trying to workshop this into because don't be afraid of math works, but I was trying to like rebrand it, right? I think I mentioned this long ago. I was trying to rebrand a lot of these ideas. It just seemed like too much effort and I gave up. But for this one, my idea was think of math and computers as like the hot weird girl that nobody will talk to, right? Because you're scared of her. But that's the opportunity. Everyone's scared of her. Go talk to her.
That's funny.
Yeah. Okay, so then I guess we come to another topic, which we have kind of talked about in a few different ways, even earlier in this conversation, if we still have that, which is the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, right? I'm imagining this a bit because he doesn't say this, but it seems like he got a lot of flack from the molecular biologists or like the more serious people, basically flaming him for working on ants. I think so. Or like that's the vibe I got. Because he goes through the pains of justifying his work a lot, which I'm like, why are you doing this, bro? I'm totally happy that you worked on ants for so long.
Yeah.
But you still does it, right? So he has this line. I'll just read that out and then we can go from there. So he says, small niche discoveries are permanent additions to human knowledge that enable big discoveries. They are not simply stamp collecting, right? So I guess that this is what he was accused of, stamp collecting, because he started off as a taxonomist, where he's
It is literally stamp collecting.
Yeah. Again, let's not say that. That's hurtful. But so
It's not in a bad way. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
But it is fun and it adds to the knowledge.
Yes, but then so the thing is, I guess here it kind of trivializes the importance of it, right? So
I would like to collect stamps. Like I'm not saying it in a bad way. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you are saying it, but I guess
people have that connotation. Yeah.
It's like, why are you doing this? Like, who cares? It's not important. But so he goes through many examples where doing that like very basic in his own work and like with his collaboration. So it's not like other stories, but where doing this sort of like identifying new species or working on problems that seem to be trivial later on add up to like very big discoveries. So they found out, I don't really remember or / didn't bother to write down the stuff, but basically a lot of his very early collection kind of work led into some big discoveries about like evolutionary biology, and like how different things come up.
And you definitely need that beginning, like that whole framework.
Yeah.
It will take years.
Yeah.
To even able to answer such bigger questions.
Yeah, and I guess my takeaway from that is basically when you are working on a problem, true, you have to balance whether you think that's important or not. But I think you can make a mistake of like asking that question a bit too early. Yeah. So, because you kind of won't even know. You can't think of all the possible ways in which this can be useful, right? Even if you don't figure it out, someone else might figure it out. So I think you have to keep that in mind. And then like I just see it as a way of getting in your own way sometimes. Like if you think about, if you're constantly asking how is this going to change the world, I think you will get nothing done.
I mean, I guess there are these two ways though. Like one is just really doing it in the moment and you're really just enjoying the problem solving, blah blah blah. You know, just enjoying the nitty gritties of that problem right then.
Yeah.
And then this other whole field of people who are driven by implications, who are driven by this is what I want to build, or this is where I want this thing to go, and so I guess it's these two sides do exist, and maybe a amalgamation of these two would be
right.
The best way.
Yeah, actually, now that you phrase it that way, so he has another thing. I'll come to that. So he calls it like the two approaches of doing science, and actually, he doesn't really. I have a feeling that he has a preference for one, but he's not really saying that one is better than the other. So the two approaches are. The first one is like problem first. It's like you're like so his example is you're a hunter in the forest and you're looking for like a specific thing, right? So you have in the science world you have a problem, a very important problem that you've decided is important, and now you're looking for the exact solution. So you go through like whatever means necessary to find that specific solution. That's approach one. And the second approach he calls is like a naturalist, where I guess they are just exploring a space that looks interesting, so a patch of forest that looks interesting, and whenever they come across something that's new, they like spend time to study it.
I see.
In fact, so here he phrases it as you're not looking for a solution to a specific problem, you're looking for interesting problems to solve.
This is somewhat similar to what we were discussing during Breaking Smart
Exactly.
episode as well.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, so I didn't have to say that. So like you said, right, this was a lot of the same concepts that was covered earlier. I think Venkatesh Rao used the word purist versus pragmatist. So like how do you do it, like top down or like bottom up kind of thing? I know where I fall, at least lately, because I'm very sick of the first way of approaching stuff. Like it just doesn't map on to my psychology somehow. So I feel I fall strongly in the second camp. These are just some stray notes actually. So he has a couple of points on what it takes to succeed, like what it takes to make it as a good scientist. It's not exhaustive, and I haven't written on everything he said. But the main point was collaboration. So he emphasizes collaborate. He has this cool story, which I think I might have said on the pod before, I don't remember.
Yeah.
So, okay, story time.
Yeah.
He wants to figure out how ants know when another ant is dead, because usually it's pitch dark inside, right? But they always like fetch the dead ants and then they throw them out of the colony. So the question is, how do they know? And his guess is it's through smell.
Yeah.
So maybe dead ants, when they start rotting, they emit some specific chemical, and other ants can detect it. And I guess the other second narrowing hypothesis is that because ant brains are very small, they probably don't check for like a wide range of aromas. So it's probably like just one or two chemicals, because they don't have enough brain space to do all that. So it's just one or two things that come from the dead ant that allow them to detect it. So this is the hypothesis. So what he decides, he calls up his chemist friend and he's like, can you just synthesize a bunch of different chemicals for me? And I guess they go through a few possible things. So he has it. So then his friend, who's like a chemical generator expert, makes all these like compounds. And then now what is he doing? He's just taking those different compounds and then
sprinkling on the
ants and seeing what the
which
other
one
ants
gets picked up.
Seeing what the other ants do to it. And then it's quite funny because some of them, they apparently like trigger some fight response, or like, they start like tearing that other ant apart, blah blah blah. It's fucking analog. But eventually they figure out that compound that makes it think that it's dead.
Yeah.
So when that happens, a group of ants will come, pick up an ant, even if it's live and walking around, pick it up and throw it out of the colony. And then they don't let it come back apparently until the smell has gone off. It's just like
God, that is so hilarious.
but he talks about how this friend was the only one who could have synthesized this range of compounds in the whole world. Like nobody else had that level of expertise. So if we hadn't talked to him, there is no way he could have solved this problem.
Absolutely.
So emphasizing collaboration.
Collaborations. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, just one. He has a few more, but I think Yeah, because personally, in my PhD, hasn't been a very collaborative experience.
Exactly what I was gonna get to as well. Like during my PhD, I have worked on a few different projects, but the most fun were where I have collaborated with people. It is one feeling where you are the one man show or like one woman show where you're like really driving the whole thing by yourself. I don't know, I have that also in me somehow. Like I want to do everything. Sometimes I have that instead of like sharing it and like discussing with other people, like you do this part, I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna do this also, even though it's like the 100th thing on the list that I already have. But definitely it is more fun with collaboration, and in the future I would really love to do more collaborative research. Like even the few things that we have been doing, like just this.
Yeah.
Of course not research, but it is just
A collaborative project.
Yeah, and so much fun.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that because so I've also started collaborating. So like you mentioned, this is one. This is not really collaboration, but we got a new RA in the lab who's helping me with my work. So it's still a kind of collaboration. We like work together.
Yeah.
And then even I'm talking to a friend about doing some potential research projects together, and I'm the opposite. I really like handing things to people. I find it very easy. Like even if it's things that I kind of want to do myself, I'm so happy to give it to someone. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I fully trust them to like, okay, do it, and then we talk about it. So yeah, we'll try to do more of it going forward.
Yes.
Okay. The second thing on what it takes to succeed, I just wrote down midwit. Do you know what a midwit is?
Like a stupid person? No.
Yeah, but like mid. So not stupid.
Like average person.
Yeah, exactly. So he has a story about the most successful scientists are not usually the smartest people.
Let's go.
I found that hilarious. He talks about how like people with very high IQ usually like go to auditing or like accounting or that kind of stuff, and I don't know, like he doesn't know why also, but I don't even think it's very well researched.
Yeah,
but
I don't understand this.
His observation where he's saying that if you're very smart, you probably like get bored with science or something and you go do some other stuff. It's the midwit people. So like who are not stupid, but they're not like particularly bright. It's like yeah, okay, whatever, like 120 IQ or something. So he says they are the ones who are most likely to succeed because follow-up point. What I guess in his opinion, the thing that really makes you succeed is not necessarily intelligence, but it's like hard work and like determination. Right, like so you need to have a stellar work ethic. So I guess maybe his point is that very smart people won't have that or something. Yeah, and the work ethic thing.
I'm a bit confused about this one.
Yeah,
mixed feelings.
Yeah, I don't know how true it is. Yeah, I don't know if anybody has ever checked the IQ of the best scientists.
Because like they are smart people. Then
yeah, they're smart, but they're not exceptional.
Maybe, but
I mean, to be fair, when he's saying 120, that's above the median, right? I don't think that's the technical mid.
Right. And of course, I understand that part. Okay, good for me.
Okay, good for us. That was exactly my reaction. I was like, oh, okay, good to know. But then he was like, but what you really need is a work ethic. And I'm like, fuck. Shit. At least one is checked.
Exactly.
So the work ethic thing, he really takes it far. Like this is the part where the oldness in him really shines through. He even goes so far as to say, don't take vacations.
Oh
like,
man.
This is just like a waste of time. It's not for scientists. Just do things you like.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
I mean, I've seen that from people in the lab as well. I don't want that, man.
Yeah. So I mean, up to you. I kind of get it. Like I get where it's coming from. But this is where I mean, like you kind of have to caveat things.
Yeah.
You might not relate to stuff.
I mean, I understand. It's somewhat like you're enjoying whatever you're doing so much.
Yeah.
That's your vacation. You
Yes.
really don't need to break out to go and do something else.
Yeah.
At all.
And the thing is, I can totally see myself doing that because I'm not someone who enjoys a typical vacation. Granted that I'm doing things I want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So I get where it's coming from, but it's just like when you tell people don't take vacations, everyone's gonna be like, fuck off. What the hell is that?
Exactly.
Yeah. The next two I'll just mention. If you don't have a reaction, we can go on. Fuck around. Just like do fun, crazy.
Did he say that?
No. He said do crazy. He said do low probability experiments, which is basically like high risk, strange experiments, but they have a high reward, potentially high reward. and then seek good mentors. Yeah, okay. I think they're fairly obvious.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I do have a recommendation this time
Sure.
to close. So it was quite funny because I had watched it, but I completely forgot about it. And I remembered it when I was re-listening to our Ambition episode,
Mm-hmm.
which is not out. No, it's out.
It's out.
Yeah.
It has 18 views or something like that.
Damn, look at us getting 18 views. Yeah, so in Ambition, we talked about how becoming an expert at something takes really long, right? It's a lot of work. And we even mentioned the 10,000 hour rule. So this is in contrast to that. There's a TED talk by a guy called Josh Kaufman. I think he even has a book on the same topic. But he's basically going against this 10,000 rule concept. And like he agrees, he's not dismissing it, but he's saying that 10,000 rule is to become an expert at something. It's not to become functional or to become good at something. And then he gives, I guess, a very motivating number instead.
Mhm.
So his thesis is it only takes 20 hours to become very good at something. Does he say very or good? I don't know. But that's his.
Very, I doubt very.
No, yeah, maybe just good. Or like 20 hours to learn something. I
Yeah.
think that's the phrasing he
Yeah.
uses. And it's a cool TED talk. I recommend you watch it.
Cool.
He does this thing where he has this whole talk, and in the end, right, he basically pulls out a guitar, a ukulele, and he wants to play a song, and he plays the song. The song is like an amalgamation of many pop songs. It's pretty good actually. Like you really enjoy it. And then when he's done, he pulls out like a stopwatch. He stops and he says that was officially my end of 20 hours.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it sounds really good.
Yeah.
Like you would not think he learned that in 20 hours.
Right. Yeah, I think it is like 20 good hours, like good
Yeah.
effort hours.
Yeah, so I guess he has a few tips of how to make the first 20 hours more efficient.
Yeah.
He like you can look it up. I don't want to dive into
Sure.
all of them, but what I thought was interesting is first is learn just enough so you can course correct, which means that you learn just enough so that you know when you're making mistakes and you know how to like correct yourself. Basically this so that you avoid like spending hours and hours just reading or like
Just figuring out
watching
small
stuff
problems, yeah.
before you actually do the thing.
Yeah.
So the main thing is like practice. So you need to be doing like deliberate practice, and that's what he says you need 20 hours of.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, and I think it's true. Like it definitely applies to programming, for example. 20 hours. Maybe I should have done this in the beginning. I'm sure someone can learn how to become, maybe not a bioinformatician, but someone can learn how to do chipseek in 20 hours.
Yeah.
Totally doable.
Agreed.
From scratch.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can learn a ukulele in 20 hours.
I
which is
think so.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, he did it. Yeah, he did it.
Look.
And I can also attest you can learn to build a website from scratch in 20 hours.
Nice.
100%.
That's cool. That's good stuff. Yeah. What like something related that I've been reading right now is a book called Mastering Stand-Up.
Oh.
Basically, so this book, I'm forgetting the name of the author, but this guy is a comedy teacher. So he's a big guy in the US and he has taught a lot of different like popular comics. And the way he has written this book is so motivating. So I came across this book and I shared it with my partner so that he could read it.
Okay.
And then it's only like recently that I actually started reading it. And then so he would talk about the basics, like different types of comedy and like the structure and what you need. So there's anecdotal, there's observational comedy, this, that. He would give you excerpts from actual comics and then he would also like really, break them down into which parts got laughs. What was
Right.
funny about it?
Right.
What was the personality that brought this thing and like things like that, all the nitty-gritties of it. But the most important point is he makes you believe that you can become a stand-up comic.
Right.
Right now,
Yeah.
I believe
You believe.
that I can be a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is quite fun. I don't know how I related it with whatever you were saying. I feel like this is 20 hours and
Able to learn
learning.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
And then practicing. So he was also just like, of course you get all the foundation, but then the most important thing is you just go out and you do your set every day, every week, and
Yeah.
only then you will actually learn. And
Yeah, I mean, this relates to a broader philosophy I have, which can be quite annoying if when you're on the receiving end of it, but I really think it's very true, which is whenever you're feeling stuck or like, not able to do something, I really feel what is missing is motivation, not information. So I think, at least for me in the past, whenever I was feeling stuck or like trying to solve a problem, how to get past this, I always seek for more information on how to solve the problem. I just realized actually that's not what I need. What I just need is like motivation to like tackle the problem.
But then it's sort of a chicken and egg problem also, right? You
In what
do
sense?
you do more and then you get more motivated, and then if you
Oh.
get stuck,
Yeah.
then from where are you gonna build in this motivation?
Oh, so for me, this can be go watch something motivating, and then I can. So before it could be, it's not just with research. I'm talking about like even
Things in
problems
life,
in life in general, where you're feeling very stuck or like you're just not able to fix the problem that you wanted to fix. And my default response used to be to like try to research how to solve that problem, which you need to do.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need to do
Yeah.
that. But you
And
can
it's
get
with the right frame of mind.
yeah, but so what I feel is like those things are like logistics. You can figure it out at any point. But what is really like stopping me at least 99% of the time is just some motivation to like get started. I feel like and that's actually not so hard to get. That's actually very easy to get if you like once you realize that that's the problem. So it's kind of like what you said, like this guy, right? He has some things of like this is how you do it, this is what made you funny. But you mentioned about how he makes you feel like you could become a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
I think that is what makes a book great, as opposed to giving you. I mean, you need that information, but those are things that you can usually figure out by yourself.
Yeah. I think this week actually has been for me like just getting out there.
Mm.
You just get out there and then you just play around and then see and then navigate.
Yeah.
Instead of just sitting and then really doing all the planning of
Yes.
how things are gonna pan
Exactly.
out. Like this after that.
Yeah, because that can be addictive. Like you can get sucked into this whole planning thing, and it feels like you're making progress. It feels like
Yeah, this also we have discussed
yeah.
a few times. Exactly, it can feel like progress just sitting and making these like elaborate plans.
Yeah.
But when you really just get your feet dirty, that's where the real things begin.